Hi guys from the UK, Western Supermare, in my kitchen. At the moment, there's no dogs. So everyone's gone out, the kids are at school, my wife's gone to friends. So I've just finished making my Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley Were They Friends video. I started at 8 in the morning. It is now, let's have a look, 10 to 1 p.m. UK time. So first of all, what I did was I did loads of searching around Google and YouTube and on the internet, basically looking for pictures that are relevant to Frank Sinatra and Elvis, not just their friendship, but also a bit of history on Frank Sinatra and a bit of the situation on Frank Sinatra's views on Elvis Presley and rock and roll. So that took a while to look up. And I found some very interesting pictures. I already knew that Nancy Sinatra met Elvis at the discharge when Elvis left the army, I think in 1960. And that's how they were introduced. Obviously, I already knew that she was a co-star in Clambake and Speedway. I also knew that she adored him. She had a massive crush on him, and that she was engaged at the time of meeting Elvis. So she secretly had this infatuation with him, but she kept it to herself. She was very loyal. She was never unfaithful. Yes, they would kiss on set as part of the making of the movies. But if you look at Nancy Sinatra's interviews, and there's quite a few, and she's regularly asked, did you have an affair with Elvis Presley? She always laughs it off and says, no, she was faithful and that it never went that way. But she did say she secretly had a crush on him and she was loyal to her fiance. I can't remember who he was, but I think he was someone quite important, an important friend of Frank Sinatra's. So I know they had a very close friendship. And Nancy Sinatra also says that Elvis would regularly phone her and he would either be really funny and fun to be with and very playful, or he would be very deep and very serious, and he would phone her up in the middle of the night talking about serious issues. Like one of the issues was the ghettos and how the children were starving and they were poor and they needed help. So he would go from one extreme to the other, and he could get very deep with her, which she did say sometimes was a bit much. So anyway, so going back to Frank Sinatra, I do love Frank Sinatra's music. I love his history. I know exactly just how famous he was. Probably the most famous man in the world, I would say, before Elvis. And obviously he had an amazing career as a singer, but not just that, as an actor. And I know that he took life very seriously and he mixed in some very interesting circles. It's known that he had very close connections with the mafia, but also with presidential people, and he was friends with the Kennedys, and he always was very a political person, Frank Sinatra. But you know, on a separate note, he's just a brilliant singer. He was so talented. He stood out amongst all of them, and again, from humble beginnings. Yeah, and he went through a lot of ups and downs, Frank Sinatra, with his career. I know that it wasn't always he wasn't always at the top of his game. And also I'm trying to think of the film that he made that was like a comeback movie, that From Here to Eternity. I know that resurrected his film career, because I know he had waned and he suffered from depression. And I know that Frank Sinatra had a lot of problems in his relationships as well. I'm trying to think of that really famous actress that he was besotted with. Oh, what was her name? It's gone out of my head. Is it Lauren McCall? I'm not sure. You tell me. Who was the actress that Frank Sinatra was besotted with? And I think he even may have married her. I'm not sure. But obviously, he loved the party life and the Rat Pack and with Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and a few others. The names will come to me. Peter Lawford, and there's a few others. It will come to me. And they had that amazing period where the Rat Pack were performing. And I think they were performing in the same hotel that Elvis did this Coming Home performance with Frank Sinatra. Is it there's something blue. It's all going out of my head today. But Fountain Blue in Miami Beach. I think it was the same place where they performed, I think. And Frank Sinatra would like to holiday in Miami Beach. So then he would do his shows in Miami Beach. So hi to Australia, Gail and Kerry. Nice to see you. And so I'm sort of learning lots about Frank Sinatra. I am a fan of Frank. I know that Frank could go from one extreme to the other. He could be quite a stern, angry person, but he could also be the most helpful person in the world. It's obvious he adored Nancy, and he definitely had troubles in his relationship. And I know from reading what I've read that he did have a problem with rock and roll music. And I'm not sure of the words that I said in my video that I've just made, like rancid, were actually the words he used. I think he thought that Elvis's music was very delinquent and was a very bad influence on the teenagers, and he just didn't like rock and roll. I think that probably was true about rock and roll. But I would say this: Elvis was a threat to Frank Sinatra, because Elvis was having this phenomenal success in 56, 57, and Frank Sinatra, his singing career had waned. So there's a sort of a dilemma there, I would say, but that they hadn't met each other. I know this, that the minute Frank did meet Elvis, which I think was actually at the show in 1960, in March the 12th, I think it was, they had this show. And Elvis had to get on a train to try and get to this show on time. And there was problems with the fans, obviously, invading wherever Elvis went. I think at one point they were throwing eggs at a train and they had to swap trains or something. But I know Elvis did get there eventually. So I think, so the idea has come up. They're going to invite Elvis as a homecoming on this show. Elvis obviously decided he was going to wear a suit because he's trying to change his image, because he's trying to get rid of this image where he is a reckless rebel. He wants to be accepted more by mainstream families and of all ages as well. So he could be accepted by your granddad, the parents, and the children. I know that was the way he was going. And Colonel Tom Parker was a very big part of this. And I also think that Elvis went into the army with that in mind as well. He wanted to change his image because things had gone wrong for him quite badly with the police and the government. And he was trying to get back on track. And Colonel Tom Parker, I do believe, actually really did help Elvis calm his image. But that wasn't probably the most popular thing with the teenagers, because the teenagers liked Elvis to be a rebel. So it was a dilemma, because actually once he became calmer and then went into making the movies, then people, I know the first 2 or 3 movies were really good, like Jailhouse Rock and King Creole and a couple of others. But obviously we all know that when the movies became too cheesy, too corny, I did like GI Blues, by the way, then he lost credibility and the songs became cheesy and not up to par to what he's capable, what we all know Elvis was capable of, the best, which he completely proved in the 68 comeback. So they do this big show. It is a massive hit. Quite an unusual chemistry between Frank and Elvis, but it really did work. It just worked. And I can see Frank trying to do a little jiggle and trying to keep up with Elvis, but Elvis just outshone Frank, and Elvis just looked so good. He really did look amazing. He looked super handsome. His hair was just spot on. He had that glint in his eyes, and you can hear the audience clapping and cheering and screaming for him, and he's lapping it up. He's loving it. And I think he really did. It was 100% as good as it could ever have been, that show. And I've been told $125,000 to appear. I'm not sure if it was that show or a following show. No, I think it was that show, because that was the most ever paid to an entertainer to go on a show. But I think that was the last time Elvis appeared on TV as well. And the other thing is GI Blues, I think, was the first movie that Elvis did after coming out of the army. Anyway, so this is obviously the beginning of Frank and Elvis starting to sort of get a mutual respect for each other, starting to understand each other. And I think Elvis, he was interviewed about Frank Sinatra's comments, derogatory comments about him as a singer and as a performer. And Elvis was very good. He basically said, I respect his opinion. I just don't agree with him. He did say that, look, rock and roll is the trend now. But when Frank Sinatra was shooting up through, I think, the 40s or maybe the early 50s, that was another trend. Yeah, is it jazz or whatever? But so instead of Elvis slating Frank Sinatra, he gave him very fair, constructive opinion on what he thought of what Frank thought of him. So I really respect that in Elvis, because he could have just slagged him off. He could have just put him down, belittled him, called him an old guy from the past, but he didn't do that. I know there was a 20-year age gap between Frank and Elvis. And I think this show at the Fontainebleau Hotel, which is a beautiful place, by the way, in Miami, and I think it's still there. I think the room they performed in is called the Sparkle Room. And yes, it's been refurbished, but it's still there, and you can still see it on YouTube. It's been updated now, but and a lot of movies were filmed at this hotel, the Fontainebleau, because I think some of the James Bond films were filmed there, maybe Goldfinger. So it's just a famous place and a brilliant destination. It has a beautiful beach in front of it, absolutely stunning. It's definitely a paradise for the wealthy. But I think this was the beginning of Elvis and Frank starting a genuine friendship, because the title of my video that I posted only 10 minutes ago was, were they friends? Well, I didn't know the answer to that question. And I wanted to make this video with you guys in mind, my subscribers, because I didn't know. So what I did, I spoke to the camera, my phone or my camera, and I started piecing this video together in small sections, a couple of minutes at a time. And then I would do my research, and then I would come back to it. So I tried to sort of do this particular video, which I'm really proud of, but interacting with my subscribers, and they could see the process I had of finding information, uploading me speaking, some pictures, some video footage, and piecing the video together and then posting it. And I just feel there was more interaction with how I made that video. So it's obvious they hit it off, and they became very good friends very quickly. And I know that Frank Sinatra had arranged for Nancy Sinatra to meet Elvis at the discharge in 1960, when Elvis was discharged from the army. And this was a publicity stunt. But I don't think Frank Sinatra realized that Nancy and Elvis would strike up such a good friendship, such a close bond, and then go on to make movies together. So the awkward bit is in GI Blues, Juliet Prowse, the co-star with Elvis in that film, which actually is one of my favorite films, GI Blues. There was obviously a relationship, an affair, and Juliet Prowse has admitted this happened. They just had sparks. They had a real chemistry. I think she said it was sexual chemistry, but and Frank Sinatra had also been seeing Juliet, and I think it sort of overlapped. And Frank and Juliet just had a very grown-up attitude towards it, and Frank just accepted that it had probably gone on. I don't think they sort of clearly spoke about it, but it was obvious that Frank did still like Juliet, and it was just a fling. They did remain friends, and she has very fond memories of it. And when she's being interviewed, Juliet Prowse, she does praise Elvis massively, and she felt very flattered that Frank really liked Juliet. And so I just think for her, in this whirlwind time in her life where she was basically having affairs with Frank and with Elvis, I just think she just was in cloud nine. What would you do if you were in her shoes, if you could see Frank Sinatra and see Elvis? And you know what Elvis was like. He would move on to the next movie, and he would get very close to the next co-star of the next movie. So if you look at the pictures that I found with Frank and Elvis, I found some pictures in the mid-70s. You could see Priscilla Presley in some of these pictures. It's so obvious that they remain friends. And I know that Frank Sinatra regularly phoned Elvis. And when Elvis decided to marry Priscilla, Frank Sinatra sent his aeroplane to collect them and take them to the destination. That just says it all. And I think Frank Sinatra's aeroplane was named Nancy. And I think this is where Elvis got the idea to name his aeroplane the Lisa Marie. He really liked that idea. So the friendship just stayed there right until he passed. And I know that from reading lots of different clips that when Elvis got unwell and he would go into Memphis Hospital, Frank Sinatra was straight on the phone, trying to help Elvis, trying to give him good advice, encouraging him to not take the prescribed medication and to look after his health. I think on one particular hospital visit that Elvis had, that he had liver problems, and Elvis had got through to Elvis. Frank had got through to Elvis and had a long chat with him and basically lectured him about his health. And I also know that when Elvis passed, Frank Sinatra was gutted. He was devastated. He was so upset. And he made it very clear publicly that Elvis was a very gifted, talented entertainer. And he really did think Elvis was one of the best singers ever born. And Frank had to earn that respect from Elvis, because in the rock and roll days, Frank didn't take Elvis's singing seriously. He just thought it was a bit of a gimmick. But once he had seen Elvis perform properly, he realized that Elvis was just truly born to sing. But he had and not just sing, the way he performed and his charisma, and was just a lovely person. He had such a heart of gold. And this is the problem I get with my comments. When I hear people trying to say that Elvis, like one comment I got yesterday was, oh, he was a great singer, but he was a horrible person. I don't agree. Elvis was a lovely person. And he helped so many people, so thousands and thousands of people that we don't know about. And he never wanted praise. And not just financially, he would help them with hospital things. And he was just such a lovely person, Elvis. And he helped all his friends, all his family. He bought everyone houses and cars. And he just really wanted people to be happy. That's why he helped his cook, and he would help his servants. That's the wrong way of putting it. Not servants. His employees. I just know that Elvis was such a lovely person. And then people just want to bring up the fact Priscilla's age when he met her, and they want to try and call him names in that way. And they try and bring up the fact that sometimes he lost his temper. So what? Sometimes people lose their temper. That's life. We're all human beings. I really do believe that Elvis was a real decent, genuine guy. And I think anyone that got close to him, like Frank Sinatra and Nancy Sinatra, realized this. Yeah. So anyway, so to come to the end of what I concluded on making this video, which I really enjoyed making, yes, they definitely were friends. They were very good friends. And Frank Sinatra was a bit of a father figure for Elvis. And they would talk to each other very regularly and advise each other. But I think the advice was more Frank giving Elvis advice. And the friendship with Nancy just was amazing, very close, till the day Elvis passed. So the end conclusion of this live stream is, yes, they were very good friends. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go. I'm going to take the dogs out for a walk. So the time is 1:08 p.m. UK time. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. I love doing them. I'm going to do more of them. And I'm sending you love. Peace out.